Monday, 1/2017, the last day of the Obama administration. Let's bring it. And you all need to know where I'm going to be on election day. I'm going to be in the polls. I'm walking into those polls and I'm going to vote for Donald Trump and Mike Pence for our new administration. And I'm going to do my best to bring others with me, because this is important. And if I gave you one argument, it would be Hillary Clinton's appointments to the United States Supreme Court would all be activists who have contempt for our Constitution. And Donald Trump has promised that he will make appointments. With the filter of Mike Pence, I'm going to suggest, of those who are strict constructionists in the vein of Justice Scalia, who Mike Pence and I both got to call a friend. And I have this great privilege of calling Mike Pence a friend. We served together elbow to elbow on the Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives for, by my calculation, 8 years. When you go in there, the Judiciary Committee, the Constitution Committee, the Immigration Subcommittee, you fight the cultural wars, the constitutional battles. You know what a man is made of when you fight these battles together day after day after day. And sometimes when the crunch comes in, you find out what a person is made of. And I do not think that there's another person in the country that would have been a better appointment for Vice President than Mike Pence under Donald Trump as President. There's not another better one. Now, so there are a couple of things about Mike. One, I sent him a tweet here, or a text here a year ago, and it's, why when I bought sweet corn off the streets of Iowa am I getting sweet corn from Indiana? And then I have to go back and send him a little challenge, which is, we built the world record, Guinness World Record popcorn ball in Sac City here a few weeks ago. We just eclipsed Indiana's world record, so now they've got to go back to work again. Challenge. But one of those challenges also to Mike Pence when he was conference chair, when Obamacare was coming down on us heavy, in the hardest, darkest times I ever had in my 14 years in the House of Representatives, we were talking with Mike and said, we need to get together in the members' chapel, and we need to pray. We need to ask for that relief from God, because it's coming at us pretty hard. Mike got out his BlackBerry, I think it was then, sent one email, and a few minutes later there were 24 members on their knees praying to God for guidance on Obamacare. Now, we haven't been delivered from Obamacare yet, but yet is the operative word. It will come, and it will come with this next administration. It will come with the Trump-Pence administration. Mike Pence is a good man and a good friend, and I've seen him in good times and in bad. I've watched him operate under pressure. I know he's a man of faith. I know he's a man of core values. I know that he's a constitutionalist. I know he defends life, and he defends marriage, and he defends these principles that are the bedrock of the greatness of America. And I can say this with a full throat here in front of all of you with great confidence and pride, because I know him. Yeah. And I'm asking you, come out and get behind the Trump-Pence ticket. I also know Karen and love her also. Here's how this came to me. I once made an announcement several years ago. I said I would support Mike Pence for any job, any promotion to which he would aspire, with the exception of Pope. And that's because I knew that he has a deep conviction and he's evangelical in his faith. But I learned later on that, well, he actually was raised in the Catholic Church and he was an altar boy. And I thought, should I support him for Pope? Well, probably not, because we'd have to give up Karen, and I love her too much too. And so this is the man that you'll be able to call Vice President, Mr. Vice President. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Governor Mike Pence, along with his wife and First Lady of Indiana, Karen.
There she stood in the street, smiling from my head to her feet. I said, hey, what is this? Now, baby, maybe she's in need of a kiss. I
Thank you, Congressman Steve King. Thank you for the always memorable words. I served for 12 years on Capitol Hill. I never served with a harder working, more principled, constitutional conservative than Steve King. Steve, I'm incredibly honored that you be with us today. Thank you so very much. Karen and I, thank you all for coming out today for this town hall and a conversation. I have a few things I want to share, get off my chest before I get to what's on your mind. But let me tell you, it's just been a few short weeks since I stepped to a podium, profoundly humbled and honored, and accepted my party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I have to tell you, I accepted this invitation in a heartbeat. I accepted it in a heartbeat. It was 11 o'clock at night on a Wednesday night, my wife at my side, and the phone rang, and that familiar voice was on the other end of the phone, if you can imagine that. And I don't remember the exact words, but I do remember him saying, "It's going to be great." But I said yes in a heartbeat because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He's a winner, and until very recently it seemed like he was out there all on his own. But now this movement is united. Our people are united, and we're going to elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States of America. You know, I'm from south of Highway 40, so Sioux City feels real at home to me. You know, I'm a small town guy from southern Indiana, grew up with a cornfield in my backyard. Pretty plain-spoken people were the people I was raised with. And there's no other way I can describe it, having gotten to know this good man and his family, other than to say, Donald Trump gets it, right? I mean, he understands the aspirations and the frustrations of the American people more than any other American leader in my lifetime since Ronald Reagan. I truly believe that. He's a doer. He's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers, and when Donald Trump does the talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around 1,000 rules of political correctness that are laid in the way of men and women that are trying to make a difference for America. He just says it like it is, and the American people are standing with him. You know, it's kind of funny to watch, though. The funny thing is, you know, the party in power just doesn't seem to know what to do with this guy. And of course, I'm referring to the media, right? But I mean, you think about it, the Democrats and the media, they all keep telling each other, you know, the usual methods are going to work, right? Something else comes up and they say, now we got him, all right? They keep thinking they finally done him in. And then they wake up the next morning, turn on the television, and Donald Trump is still standing stronger than ever before and fighting for the American people and fighting to make America great again. And, you know, I think it comes not from a career of building a global business, but having gotten to know this good man and his family, far off the campaign trail, as Karen and I and our kids have had a chance to do. I think it's because that while he's led a global business and built skyscrapers to the clouds, he's done it standing shoulder to shoulder with the men and women who do the work. I mean, to see him at his place of business, you see that the ground is level around Donald Trump. I mean, he spends as much time talking to the people that are grooming the lawns and laying the bricks as he's talking to the other CEOs and the other executives. I mean, the truth of the matter is Donald Trump has never forgotten the people of this country who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build our roads and our bridges, who tend to our sick, who teach our kids. And most importantly, he has never and will never forget the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement in this country. Can we show the law enforcement officers here who are present with us today how much we appreciate all that they do to protect our families? Thanks so much. And I can promise you this. as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, a President Donald Trump will support our law enforcement community with the resources they need to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. He will fight every day as president to restore law and order back to the streets and neighborhoods of every city and every town in America. You know, it really is amazing if you think about it. At the very moment when America is crying out for something new and different, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. I mean, people in both parties are restless for change. We're restless to break free from the failed patterns that have disserved our nation for so many years in Washington, D.C. I mean, did you watch that speech about a little more than a week ago that Hillary Clinton gave? All right, I watched most of it, to be honest with you. To be honest, I had as hard a time staying awake as her husband did. Is that all right? I mean, seriously, it wasn't just that it was kind of long and it was kind of late. It was that it was the same old, wasn't it? I mean, the same policies that for the last 7 years have weakened America's place in the world and stifled America's economy. Hillary Clinton announced that she wants to keep it going the way it's been going. I mean, it really is incredible. With the weakest recovery since the Great Depression, okay? With the lowest labor force participation rate since the 1970s, with nearly 7 million more Americans living in poverty than 7.5 years ago, Hillary Clinton announced plans to raise taxes by $1.3 trillion, likely to cost 300,000 jobs, according to experts. It's going to increase spending by a minimum of $3.5 trillion. She not only is not going to reduce regulations and red tape, but has plenty of plans to increase regulations, expand Obamacare, expand the war on coal. And Hillary Clinton wants to reduce the use of fossil fuels and advance more of these failed green energy projects that we've seen before. And if you haven't heard about it, just this last week, the Des Moines Register announced that officials with her campaign were actually in California meeting with, if you didn't see about it, it was in the Des Moines Register, meeting with environmentalists about changing the federal requirements for ethanol. I mean, Chuck Grassley pointed out that this California ideal, the low carbon fuel standard, is simply, in his words now, an invention of those who belittle the carbon benefit of traditional corn ethanol using scientifically questionable rationale. And he went on to say, and I agree wholeheartedly, coming from another great corn state, just like Iowa, over in the Hoosier State, he said, any proposal that opens up or undermines the RFS and results in less ethanol, biodiesel, and cellulosic biofuels is a non-starter. And I promise each and every one of you, Donald Trump supports the biofuel mandates of the renewable fuel standards, and he won't be looking to California environmentalists to advance policies that will cost jobs here in Iowa and in Indiana and across this country. But all those policies, I just have to tell you, as I look at what she's planning, not only for Iowa, but for the rest of the country, I just want to say from my heart, if you hear nothing else from me today, okay, for the sake of our security, for the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of preserving the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land, men and women of Iowa, let's decide here and now that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States of America. Okay? I mean, truthfully, they tell us this is the best that we can do. But you all know it's nowhere near the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States of America, he's going to fight to cut taxes, roll back regulation, repeal Obamacare, and get this economy moving again for everyone in this country. We were just in Detroit this morning. Believe it or not, that's the kind of life I'm living now. Lunch in Detroit, afternoon in Sioux City, and all over the country. But I was there today, and I want you to look at the news tonight because Donald Trump went before a storied gathering. It's called the Detroit Economic Club, and he laid out an economic agenda that will get this economy moving again. Tax reform, regulatory reform, trade reform, and energy reform. On the tax front, Donald Trump today outlined plans to simplify taxes for everyone, to streamline deductions, to lower taxes across the board, to lower marginal income tax rates, reduce income taxes dramatically, make child care fully deductible, and end death taxes once and for all for every American. And here in a country where we have one of the highest corporate tax rates in America today, Donald Trump talked about lowering the corporate tax rate to 15% so that businesses, large and small, startup businesses can compete here in Iowa, compete in America, and compete with the world. He announced plans today to do what we actually did back in the Hoosier State. The first day I was governor, I signed a moratorium on all new regulation. And today, Donald Trump cited that favorably and said when he becomes president on day one, he will sign a moratorium on new federal red tape and work to roll back the EPA's Clean Power Plan, the Waters of the United States rule, and end the war on coal once and for all. Tougher trade deals, renegotiating NAFTA, pulling out of TPP, holding China accountable for currency manipulation, and on the energy front. So important in this great nation. He announced today that he would rescind all job-destroying executive orders, ask TransCanada to renew its permit application for the Keystone Pipeline, and lift all restrictions on American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above American energy strategy under President Donald Trump. Now, President Obama was heard from last week on this topic. Seems like he's had a lot to say about the presidential campaign. Last week, he actually said that my new boss was, quote, woefully unprepared to do this job. Well, honestly, I mean, President Obama, I got to admit, he would know a lot about what it is to be woefully unprepared to be president of the United States of America. But what bothered me is he went on to say that Donald Trump lacks the basic knowledge of critical issues, that he, in effect, lacks the judgment to be president of the United States. And I just have to tell you, Steve King and I served on that Judiciary Committee together. I also served for more than a decade on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I watched the hard-fought gains of American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I watched the judgment of this administration of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton squander those hard-fought gains. It's extraordinary to think about it. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's leadership on the world stage has weakened America's place in the world. You see terrorist attacks inspired at home and against our allies abroad. Even in this last week, another attack in Belgium, and last week a Catholic priest laid to rest, murdered by ISIS terrorists in the very pews of his own church. An attempted coup in an ally, a map of the wider Middle East that is almost unrecognizable from the day that Barack Obama was sworn in as president. For all the world, it looks like the world is spinning apart. History teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And I truly do believe that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, the rise, rule, and reign of ISIS are a testament to this truth of history. And then we just found out last week, after that disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran that transferred $150 billion with illusory promises from them about a nuclear program. Then we found out that on the very same day that 4 Americans were released, this administration authorized the delivery of $400 million in currency, and the administration says it wasn't a ransom payment. Well, let me promise you this. When Donald Trump is the leader of the free world, America won't be paying ransom to terrorists. Terrorists and their sponsors will be paying a price for threatening or detaining or harming the people of the United States of America. I mean, it's about judgment. It's about judgment, men and women. It really is. And we ought to have a debate about judgment going forward in this election, and we certainly will in the next 3 months. And chief among those issues is not just squandering the hard-fought gains in Iraq that left a vacuum in which ISIS was able to be conjured, as it were, virtually out of the desert sands to compromise large territories in Iraq. It wasn't even just about the disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran, looking at Libya, looking at the disintegration of Syria. But I have to tell you, the fact that it was Hillary Clinton who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi, where 4 Americans fell, and then said after it was over, what difference at this point does it make? Well, let me say, as the proud father of a United States Marine, anyone who said that, anyone who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Plain and simple. We just can't have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. America needs to be strong for the world to be safe. And I promise you, Donald Trump will rebuild our military, rebuild our coalitions, demand operational support from our allies, and he will organize and confront Islamic terrorism at its source and protect this nation. Donald Trump will lead on the world stage with strength from the first day he becomes president. You know, I got to be honest with you, as I've traveled around the country in the last few weeks and back in the Hoosier State, I can't help but feel like the sense of this moment is that the American people are just tired of being told. You know, I mean, we're tired of being told this is as good as it gets, right? I mean, we're tired of being told by politicians in both political parties that they're going to solve those problems eventually as they pile a mountain range of debt on our children and grandchildren. And we're tired of being told, as Ronald Reagan used to say so well, tired of being told that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital could plan our lives better for us than we can plan them for ourselves. And in that vein, as this election approaches, one more thing I wanted to mention to you before I close and get to your questions, and that is that Steve King just mentioned this as well. You know, we're about to elect a president for the next 4 years, but that president will likely define the course and direction of the Supreme Court of the United States of America for the next 40 years. And we better think very carefully about what that means. I mean, you got one of my favorite constitutional conservatives sitting back here. Give him another round of applause, Steve King. Steve just mentioned it to you. The next president of the United States could appoint 1 to 3 justices to the Supreme Court. I mean, elect Hillary Clinton and you better get used to more unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions, plain and simple. So let me say, and I know I speak for this guy back here, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all of our God-given liberties, we must ensure that the next president making appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States of America is President Donald Trump. Donald Trump believes in the freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, and he'll fight for them. And not just in his appointments to the court. There's one other story I love to tell about my running mate and about the kind of leader that he is. Steve, you may not even have heard this one. Maybe you haven't either. It was a better part of a year ago, I'm told that Donald Trump was meeting with a group of pastors and talking with them about his vision for the country to make America great again. Several of them expressed enthusiasm for him, and he asked them if they might go back and be able to share that with members of their congregation, and they immediately told him that they couldn't. And he asked them why. You know, I love the definition that, politicians always ask what, leaders ask why. And Donald Trump asked why. And they pointed out to him that back in 1954, a senator by the name of Lyndon Johnson actually added a provision to the Internal Revenue Code that prohibits tax-exempt organizations, including faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, and the like, from endorsing or opposing any candidate for public office. Some of you have heard that before. Some of you have heard that churches in this country live under a constant threat of losing their tax-exempt status if they say the wrong things at the pulpit. Well, I have to tell you, as a student of American history and the American founding, I happen to know that some of the greatest speeches during our season of fighting for independence were printed pamphlets that were not political speeches, they were sermons that were distributed throughout the 13 colonies. Slavery was brought to an end because of the moral voices that emerged from the likes of Harriet Beecher Stowe's father and others who thundered from the pulpit about the vision of equality. And in fact, the civil rights movement itself was minted in the very pews in Montgomery of Dr. King's church. Karen and I have stood there with some of the people who prayed and sang and then marched with Dr. King. It is true that the voices of people of faith have ever been a driving force for good in this country. So I couldn't be prouder to tell you that a few short weeks back, for the first time in the history of the Republican Party, our platform includes a commitment to repeal the Johnson Amendment and take the restraint off communities of faith to be able to exercise the freedom of speech in this land of the free. And I promise you, Donald Trump and I will work to have that legislation on his desk and have him sign it into law. Well, let me say lastly, as I get ready to go to your questions, and I'd love for you to think about anything you want to know about me or my background or about this campaign or issues in the country of interest to you. I do hope you leave here encouraged with a message to carry to your neighbors and friends here in Sioux City. I mean, this isn't so much just about meeting for a rally, it's about reminding ourselves of what we already know and about the stakes of this election. This really is a very simple choice. It's a choice between change and the status quo. It's a choice between failed leadership and renewed leadership. When you look up that speech that Donald Trump gave at noon today over in Detroit, you're going to hear the kind of a bold vision for a growing American economy, the likes of which I don't think we've really heard since about 1980. And so get ready for it. But I hope you also leave here today and encouraged, if you're so inclined, to avail yourself of the strength that it takes to give voice to our values. You know, Steve gave me a nice introduction. I'm going to take him on the road. He was pretty excessive today. But he knows the introduction I prefer is a little shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. I do hope you leave here today. I do hope you leave here today convicted about finding a neighbor and a friend and getting involved and donating some time and going to work, because Iowa is going to loom very, very large in the destiny of this election and the destiny of this country. Okay? But I also hope, if you're anything like Karen and me, that if you occasionally bend the knee, that you do that in these troubled times, these challenging times at home and abroad, because I still believe with all my heart that what's been true for millennia is still true today, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, that he will again hear from heaven and he will heal our land. So here's the stakes. Here's the stakes if you're taking notes, and I'm going to get to your questions. Number one, if you want a president who will protect this nation, confront radical Islamic terrorism, and rid the world of ISIS, if you want a president who will restore law and order to the cities and towns of this country and give law enforcement the support and resources they need and deserve, if you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of that bloated federal bureaucracy, and repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel, if you want a president who will build strong borders, build a wall, and enforce our laws in this country, and if you want a president who will upend the status quo in Washington, D.C., and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, then we have but one choice, and that man is ready. This movement is ready, and I believe this country is ready for us to leave here and fight every day to elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America. Let's get to work. Thank you all. I think this is on now. Is this on? Good. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I really do think it's important that we take some time to remind ourselves what we already know, because we got 3 months to go. And I just want to say to you, as I get ready to go to your questions or comments, I really do believe all the television commercials in the world, all the talk shows in the world, all the mail pieces and radio ads, newspaper articles don't matter a fraction of when you go talk to somebody who've known you, or worked with you, or lives by you, and say, you know what, here's really why we need Donald Trump as our next president. And so I hope you leave here today with that burden and go out and share that story with passion and sincerity. Go ahead. And I'd love to hear the first name, and you can slip your hand in the air if you've got a question or comment.
So we've got Gerald here in the front. He's a veteran, and he's got a question for you, Governor Pence.
How about a round of applause for all of our veterans who are with us today? Would our veterans please stand up? Stand up or raise your hand if you're otherwise able. Let's give a big round of applause for Gerald and all of our veterans who are with us today.
What is your question?
Thank you all for your service. Yes, sir.
Let's make sure it's on.
Governor, is this on?
It is.
Okay. Governor, what are your intentions with regards to the cabinet position of the Department of Education? Are you going to eliminate that, and along with that, the same thing, eliminate Common Core?
Well, let me take door number 2 on that. I think Indiana was one of the first states in the country to legally withdraw from Common Core and write standards of our own. We were. And I will tell you, I think you and Donald Trump and I are of one mind on this education business, and that is that, the Department of Education was created by President Jimmy Carter. It hasn't been around that long. And I'll tell you what, Donald Trump and I believe education is a state and local function that ought to be controlled by parents and teachers and administrators right here in Sioux City. And also, let me tell you, he mentioned it, Donald Trump mentioned it here today. We are going to be passionate about this point. Donald Trump, I'm proud that Indiana has the largest school voucher program in the country, and Donald Trump is going to fight to open educational choice opportunities for every American child, regardless of your income or your area code.
He's just got one more thing.
Yes, Governor, when you have the opportunity to see my very good friend and fellow patriot, Jim Thomas. Would you tell him hello from the old
I will.
geezer from Iowa?
I will.
Appreciate your question. Thank you.
Senator Thomas is a great guy.
Did
Good.
you have
I will
one?
tell him hi for you. Yes.
We have another veteran who's got a question.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to make a statement first.
Please.
We've had almost 7.5 years of a disastrous, treasonous president. We have to replace him. And then my question is, what would you expect to do with the forces of the United States of America military?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, my father, and thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate it very much, Navy. My father was a combat veteran in Korea. My son is a United States Marine. The truth of the matter is that our military has been hollowed out under this administration. And I promise you, and it's one of the reasons I think why I see so many veterans at Trump rallies and why I see so many active duty servicemen and women who are joining us, because people know, first and foremost, as Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump is going to rebuild the arsenal of democracy and rebuild the American military from the ground up. And we're going to be telling that story. We're going to be telling that story. I was just talking to some folks who are familiar with these issues out in California and Miramar, and the number of planes that we've got aircraft and maintenance that's borrowing from one plane to another because they don't have the resources, they don't have the funding. It's a story to tell. And the size of the Navy today, I think you probably already know, rebuilding the military is going to make it possible for us to stand taller on the world stage. And as Ronald Reagan taught us, I mean, Donald Trump will demonstrate that you can have peace through strength again as we rebuild.
Nice. All righty. We've got another question over here from Jim, who's a small business owner.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hello, Governor Pence. It's an honor.
It's my honor. What's your name?
Jim Miller.
Hi, Jim.
When I listened to your speech and saw your introduction, the couple things for me that stood out right away. Number one, thank your son for his service. It was great to see you. You know, your son's a Marine.
Thank you.
That's great. And the other thing, just to see all the success that you had, wasn't surprising that you came out on top in the VP selection there.
Surprised me.
When you see all the success you had there in Indiana, I'm really excited to hear what things that you had success with in Indiana are you going to be able to duplicate now with our next president?
Well, what a great question. It's Jim, right? Thank you. And we'll pass that along to Michael. Karen is probably already texting it right now, so thank you. Number one, I really meant it. There were a great number of extraordinary men and women who were considered for this position, and I was very humbled to be on the list, and couldn't begin to express how honored my family and I are at this opportunity. But I think one of the reasons I think you'd have to ask him directly that informed Donald Trump's invitation for us to join this team had to do with what we've done in Indiana. And the reason I say that is because so many times he's constantly, we're Hoosiers, we're a little bit like people from Iowa. I mean, we don't toot our own horn, too much. We're kind of modesty's in our DNA, you know what I'm saying? And so, but he's always telling me, he says, tell the story of what you did in Indiana. Because in Indiana, about 10 years ago, Indiana found ourselves in a position of a lot of other kind of failing states across the Midwest. It was a little more than 10 years ago, but we were hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. Taxes were too high. Our schools had gone unreformed for a generation. Infrastructure had been neglected. And then we just took a decisive step in the direction of common sense conservative principles, putting them into practice. And my predecessor managed to put our fiscal house in order, so I was able to arrive as governor and begin to take that race car around the track, and so we did. From the time I became governor, we had a moratorium on all new regulations. in the state of Indiana to roll back red tape on small businesses. Donald Trump announced today he's going to do that on day one when he becomes president of the United States. My first year in office, I signed the largest state tax cut in Indiana history, and we've managed to cut taxes every single year that I've been governor, $3.5 billion in tax relief. Which, I mean, I love the idea of people keeping more of what they earn, but here's the other part of it. We also, in that same period of time, Jim, we have the largest increase in education funding in a single budget in Indiana history. We've invested more than $2.5 billion in our infrastructure in the state. And beyond all of that, we still have one of the healthiest balance sheets in the country, a AAA bond rating, and a record surplus and reserve in the state of Indiana. And most importantly, there's more Hoosiers going to work than ever before in the 200-year history of the state of Indiana. And what I can tell you is that's exactly the kind of no-nonsense leadership and results that Donald Trump and I are going to bring to the White House, okay? It's simple. It's live within your means, let people keep more of what they earn, invest in the ways that can support a growing economy and a well-educated people, and take 3 steps back, and the American people know how to prosper, right? So it's worked. We call Indiana a state that works, and Iowa's got a state that works as well, with your great governor Terry Branstad. But get ready to see a lot more of that at the White House with Donald Trump.
Thank you.
Yes, over here.
All righty, and we have Larissa over here from Sioux City. She's got a question for you.
Hi, what's your name?
Larissa.
Larissa, hi.
Hi. What's your plans with the railroad? Because there's currently 5,000 layoffs alone, and that's just because Obama's not for coal. So what's your plans with the railroad? And do you plan on using the railroad retirement to pay off national U.S. debt?
Well, that's a fresh question for me. And you related the railroad issue to coal? Yeah, railroad to coal, transportation, and the rest. Let me get your email and see if I can get you a more detailed answer about what the policies of the Trump campaign might be at this point, or things that our candidate has said about railroad infrastructure in particular. But look, I'd say 2 things about it. Number one is, in very broad terms, in America we do 3 things particularly well. We make things, we grow things, and we move things, right? Okay? And so making sure that we continue to be a country that creates things. Take a look at Donald Trump's speech today. You're going to hear about a number of policy proposals that are all designed about seeing jobs created here in this country again, manufacturing coming back in this country again through tax reform, regulatory reform, smarter and tougher trade deals, and energy. The other piece of that, though, is to be able to move things, we've got to continue to invest in our infrastructure in this country, and that's pavement, roads and bridges, it's air, it's rail. And today, Donald Trump alluded to that, and you're going to see more detail about the infrastructure plan that's going to be coming forward. With regard to the relationship with coal, Indiana, southern Indiana is a big coal state. I'll just promise you, Donald Trump is going to end the war on coal on day one of his administration, and we're going to free up coal production in this country for the American people, for the American economy. And we're running against someone who promised, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it memorized, he promised to put coal businesses and coal miners out of work. And so big contrast there. But if you slide our guys your email, I'll get you a specific answer. Anything else we've done specific to rail? It's a great question. Okay.
We have one more question, and
Okay.
this will be our last question of the evening. This is Andrew. He's a PhD student in Texas.
And I'm from rural Iowa, Sanborn, Iowa. So,
Okay, good.
Yeah, so
Who let?
1,200 people.
I saw several people in the front row go, Texas.
Yeah, my home is here, but I go to school.
Nice
down
to see you.
One of the things that is really important to me, I'm an independent, and so I'm trying to figure out is caring for the least of these. And one of my dear friends is a man who is wheelchair bound with cerebral palsy, who badly wants to work, but often really struggles to find someone who will hire him. And so 26 years after the ADA, I guess my question would be, how do we expand job opportunities, not just for those of us who can work more easily, but for those who have disabilities that need to be taken into account? So.
Yeah. What's your friend's name?
My friend's name is Justin, and he's excellent and has a master's degree, but still really struggles to find someone who will employ him. So
Awesome.
I'm off to him. He's wonderful.
Awesome guy. Yeah. One of my best friends in high school was named Eddie Jefferson, and he had cerebral palsy, and just an amazing guy, still one of the great inspirations of my life. So I hope you'll give Justin our congratulations and thanks. I think there's a lot of great things happening in the private sector in this country today. A number of major corporations are recognizing that people with physical challenges and even mental challenges can provide an enormous value to a company and are opening doors of opportunity to that. And what I can tell you is, in the state of Indiana, we've tried to facilitate that. We've tried to lead by example. As governor of Indiana, I'm actually the largest employer in the state. We got about 28,000 employees. But we've really sought to open doors of opportunity for people, as well as contracting state contracts with organizations that will work with the physically or mentally disabled. And I think there's much to be said for that, to your point. Justin, the cerebral palsy is a physical ailment. It has no impact on his mind, as his academic achievements have demonstrated. And so raising awareness of the enormous contribution that men and women who face physical challenges, I think is incredibly worthy. It's something that we've done in Indiana, and something that I'd be anxious to continue to look for ways to promote and encourage in the private and the public sector as we go. So thanks for your compassion. That's a wonderful question, Tom. It really is. Okay. I want to whip around and say hi to a few of the folks, particularly some of these kids that are here, but let me at least leave you with one word of admonition, and that is, folks, it is August 8th today. It is Monday, and Election Day in November is just around the corner. Be here in a blink. You've already demonstrated by taking time on a busy Monday afternoon to come here and hear from the B-list Republican celebrity, right? So thank you for that. I'm actually very humbled by that. So I just want to say to all of you, oh, thank you very much. It's very kind. I want to say to all of you, while you're standing, I won't make you sit down again. It's just leave here today with a burden on your heart to go find a friend, go find a neighbor, go send an email, go send a text and say, you know what? I got over, I met Mike, I heard what he had to say. He's right. We've got an opportunity to turn this country around, to make America strong again at home and abroad, to make America safe again, to make America prosper again, and to rekindle the strength of our Constitution as a foundation of who we are. But we've got to choose Donald Trump. We've got to work every day to elect this good man to be our next great president. And you do that, we will make America great again. I promise you with all my heart. Thank you very much, and God bless you. God bless you for being here.
New York City, school bus driver.
Afternoon. First thing I'm going to do is bring you up to what we know and what I can give out. It's only fair to keep you informed of the progress. So there are certain things I can't say right now, but I hope after some interviews are completed with witnesses that I can give you more details, but I can't do it now until we finish our forensic interviews of some of the juveniles that were in the residence when this occurs. So please bear with me on that, but I'm going to give you what I feel that I can do and stay within protecting our investigation. Anybody have any questions about that? You may have some questions after. So this incident occurred 11 p.m. on Saturday night when sheriff's deputies responded to a Youngtown address where a 3-year-old was murdered by his 16-year-old brother. 115 Drive and Longley Lane in Youngtown is where the residence was located. The incident also involved another 9-year-old female who was also assaulted by the 16-year-old suspect. She received non-threatening injuries, went to the hospital, and has been released. The 16-year-old suspect ran from the house, probably almost a quarter of a mile, was chased by our deputy sheriffs. After that foot pursuit, and was tackled by our deputies and placed under arrest. The suspect was covered with blood, and there was also traces of blood on the roadways. He was booked into the Durango jail, charged with second-degree murder at this time, aggravated assault, and also endangerment. This 16-year-old, I'm sure, will be tried as an adult and will be in our jails. Right now, he is in juvenile detention. In the home was also a 17-year-old, the brother, and a 4-year-old child that was there when this murder occurred. Now, due to the young age of the witnesses, as I just mentioned, we have to get forensic experts to interview those underage witnesses. There's certain protocol to follow when you deal with young people, so we're trying to follow all the rules and protocol when we conduct this investigation, and that's why I'm withholding some information until we can interview the other juveniles, including the 9-year-old that went to the hospital, as to what they saw in that house and what the 16-year-old did. Also, and I'm not going into details, we executed a search warrant, and I'm going to leave it at that. In the future, when I upgrade you, we'll talk about that execution of the search warrant in that residence. You know, this is the third investigation that my office has conducted in the last 30 days, or going back to the 4th of July, when you had 8 people shot at their residence, including a 2-year-old. And then about 3 weeks ago, we had 2 juveniles that were killed, shot, allegedly by the mother, who committed suicide. Now we have this incident of a vicious, horrific murder of a 3-year-old. Looks like domestic violence is out of hand. I think people in this county and across the nation want some peace of mind, but when you look at what happens in homes and on the streets, I can understand their concern. We also have a crisis management group that responded to this gruesome murder to deal with our deputy sheriffs that have to conduct the investigation. So that's about all I can tell you right now. But after the interviews, maybe I can go and give you some more details of this murder that occurred, and it's not going to be nice.
Sheriff, were all the people home, same family?
The mother was not at home. we believe she was working. I have to have some concern for the witnesses and the family, too. That's why we want to get to the bottom of this and interview those people, because this is maybe gruesome too, but it also could be very horrific for the other members of the family, so we want to make sure they are protected in a sense over this situation.
Sheriff, can you say, was a weapon recovered?
I'm not going to say that now, but I'll be glad probably to say it as soon as we interview the other people in that residence. I'm not trying to avoid you, but I am, because we still have to finish this investigation. It's not done. One reason I'm telling you now is because there's been much interest, and at least we can say what we've been doing, but I could wait until it's completely over. That could be tomorrow, the next day. So this is sort of an interim interview to let you know what the status is as of now.
Are you able to confirm reports that it was a stabbing?
I don't know where you got those reports, but I'll go that far. Say it was a stabbing. That's as far as I'm going.
Have you been able to find out anything about the suspect's mental illness and history of that?
No. Once again, I'm saying that we still have some people to interview, so we're not done yet.
Sheriff, do you believe drugs were involved in person or persons under the influence?
Not going to answer that.
Is the 3-year-old victim a boy or a girl?
The what?
The 3-year-old victim, gender. Boy or a girl?
Boy. Brother.
Do you have any history of prior calls to this home?
No. That we know of. The what? What they witnessed? Well, I'm not going to get into that. You do know after this incident occurred, those 3 left the house, and I believe knocked on some neighbors' doors. The suspect decided to run, as I mentioned, about a quarter of a block, and was arrested by our deputies and had blood all over his person. That's why we are interviewing other juveniles that were in that house.
Are you releasing any names of the full name of the victim or full name of the 16?
They're all juveniles. We usually don't give names of juveniles.
So you say that the suspect ran and was tackled by your deputies, so your deputies were arriving at the scene moments after this happened?
They were called at 911, I believe, when the other people ran off out of their home, knocked on neighbors' doors. And the deputies showed up, and at that time, the 15-year-old was running. The other 3 went to a house. The suspect was running. Our deputies chased him on foot and able to apprehend him.
So the suspect was in the process of running from the home when your deputies arrived on scene?
I believe so.
Just be clear, that's a 16-year-old.
Pardon?
16-year-old, be clear, the suspect is a 16-year-old?
The 16-year-old. Did I say 15?
Were the 17-year-old or
I'm sure it was a 16-year-old. Pardon?
Were the 17-year-old or 4-year-old harmed in any way? Were they attacked?
The 9-year-old female was attacked and went to the hospital and was treated and released. And she is one that has to be interviewed. The 17-year-old has to be interviewed. The 4-year-old may be interviewed. So as you can understand, we have a lot of interviews to do with experts, forensic experts, because of the age, also because of the timing. Usually you want to give them a chance in this situation for the witnesses, the young people, to relax a little and not hit them right away with questions. It's sort of a protocol. So that's what's delaying my final remarks on this case.
Was the 9-year-old attack the same weapon that was used?
Not going to get into that.
But right now, it looks like the 3-year-old and the 9-year-old were the only ones who were physically harmed in the attack.
Yes. Once again, let me say it was a 2-story house, and I'm not going to get into what floor that will come out as soon as we complete our interviews.
Sheriff, you mentioned a mother likely at work at the time. Any other parents or relatives living at the home?
Not that we know of.
And was it common for the mother to leave the older kids in charge while she went to work?
The what comments?
Was it common for the mother to leave the older kids in charge instead of bringing in, an older babysitter, relative, whatever?
I think they're all family that were in that house. I don't believe there was a babysitter there.
Right.
There was a 17-year-old part of the family.
So it was common for the 16 and 17-year-olds to be left in charge of the younger kids?
I have no idea on this situation. I guess there's been times where other people, 17-year-olds, were watching kids. I don't know. This is a 17-year-old. It's not a young person that was there. But, once again, a lot of interviews to do, which we may be able to answer your question at another time.
And to be clear, all 4 of the kids are related? They're full brother, sister? It's not a half-brother, half-sister?
There could be a mix, but they're all siblings, all related. The whole family is.
Do you have genders on the 17-year-old and the 4-year-old?
17-year-old is a male, a brother of I believe, the 16-year-old. The 4-year-old, I don't know yet what the gender is.
Sheriff, can you tell us a little bit more about the status of the suspect? Is he on a special watch of any kind?
The suspect is not under our control yet. That he is in a juvenile detention, Durango, but we feel very soon he will be charged as an adult, and once they're charged as an adult, they come to our jails that we run for adult prisoners.
Sheriff, who charges? You said there'll be charges as an adult. Who makes that decision?
It'll be the county attorney.
And why do you believe that he'll be charged as an adult?
Well, I think it's a very gruesome situation, and I'm confident that the person will be charged as an adult. I would like to see that done.
Sheriff, would you describe it as a heinous act?
I'm looking at that word to see if there's even a more brutal word to say, but yes. I'll tell you that much.
Any other questions at this time?
Sheriff, you said that you can't speak to whether drugs were involved, and I don't remember if this was asked or not, but do you know if there were any mental health issues?
I don't know. I'm going to say again, we did a search warrant, and I'm not going to give any details about that search
Was
warrant.
that today?
Yes, today. 16 years old, right? And the 17-year-old is a brother.
Yes.
I want to make sure my mind is right, not give you any false information.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
climate change is real, whether your governor and Donald Trump want to admit it or not. But here's the bigger problem. They are turning their backs on millions of new good jobs. Hundreds of thousands and millions of jobs. Other states are moving ahead. Other states are investing in wind, investing in solar, investing in geothermal and other renewable energy. So here's what I'm going to do. We are going to have a commitment to create more clean, renewable energy jobs, and we're going to work to get those jobs in places like Florida, which could be an international leader with clean energy. And you know what else? We are going to build a modern electric grid that can actually take and distribute clean energy. And we're going to finish the job of connecting up the entire country to high-speed broadband internet access. Everywhere I go in America, I meet so many people who are left out of the digital world. They don't have high-speed internet in their jobs or in their homes. And I was recently talking to a bunch of teachers. You know, I love teachers. And I want to be a strong partner for our teachers. And the teachers were telling me, they said they had just completed a national survey. 70% of our teachers give their students homework which requires them using the internet. I think that's good because we want our kids to know how to do it, right? But here's the problem. 5 million kids in America don't have access to an internet when they go home at night. So what's going to happen? They're going to fall behind. That's not fair. So we're going to put people to work making sure we have broadband, high-speed, affordable internet connectivity everywhere in our country. And then I want to do everything I can to promote and support small businesses. I just came from a visit to a great brewery called the Three Daughters Brewery in St. Pete. It's like every small business, you know, the husband and wife, Mike and Lee, they decided they were going to take a risk. They were going to start this business, and they did. And I take that personally because my dad was a small businessman, really small. He worked really hard. He printed drapery fabrics, and it was hard work. But he made a good living. I mean, we weren't wealthy, but we were solid middle class, and he sent me to college. We did everything we could to have a good life, and I give my dad credit because he got up and went to work every day. But here's the rub. My father, who stood over those long tables in his print plant, printing the fabric for draperies, he would finish those jobs. He would load the fabric into the car. He would take them to the people who'd ordered them, and he would deliver them, and then he would be paid. That's how it works, right? You do the job, you get paid. But that's not the way it works with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has consistently refused to pay working people and small businesses. I tell you, it really upsets me because I think about my dad. I've been meeting people. I've been meeting small businesses who were shocked. They did what they were contracted to do, and then Trump basically said, I'm not paying you. And sometimes he would offer 50 cents or 30 cents on the dollar. But I got to thinking about my dad. What would we have done? I've met businesses that had to go bankrupt because Donald Trump would not pay his bills. So I believe in small business. I want to be a small business president. I want to do everything I can to help you start small businesses and grow small businesses. And in order to do that, we've got to work together to make sure small businesses have a chance to cut through the red tape, they get the help that they need, but 2/3 of the new jobs are going to be started by small businesses. So rather than putting people out of business, would you rather have a president who says you're fired or you're hired? I'm hoping you're going to hear a lot of the "you're hired" when I'm president, because that's what I want us to do together. I also believe that we've got to do a better job to make sure that every young person is prepared to be able to get the jobs of the future. And that starts with early childhood education. It continues on through school. But here's something that I want you to understand from me. I want to make college affordable, 4-year college affordable, and help people with student debt pay down their student debt and get rid of it. But that's not all I want to do. You know why? Because our best estimates are that by 2020, which is not very far away, more than half the jobs in America will not require a college degree, but they will require certain skills. So let's make community college free. Let's get technical education back into high school. Let's do more with apprenticeships and training programs. We were, Tim Kaine and I, I just got to tell you, I'm so proud of Tim Kaine, my vice presidential running mate, and he and I had a chance to visit some businesses in Pennsylvania and Ohio. One of the places we went to in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, the Johnstown Wire Technologies Company, they train the people to do the jobs, and then they are on average getting paid $70,000 a year. It's skilled labor, and we're going to need more people with those skills. I'm going to work with unions and businesses. We're going to have the kind of support we need for more people to get prepared for the jobs of the future. So you see, I'm pretty excited about what we're going to do. I am confident. I am optimistic. I'm enthusiastic about our first 100 days plan. But then I gotta tell you, we have to contrast it with what we are hearing from Donald Trump. And I know today he gave a speech in Detroit trying to change the subject. And he talked about, what his economic plans were. But I'll tell you, there wasn't a lot in it for most Americans. He announced a few days ago that he's got a dozen economic advisors. Let's see. He's got 3 Wall Street money managers, an oil baron, a former chief economist at one of the big banks at the heart of the financial crisis. He's got 6 men named Steve. And that they all care about the same things he does, about how to avoid paying their fair share. And he's given out these kinds of plans or policies, don't really deserve that name. Basically, it's cut taxes on the wealthy, get out of the way, and let the wealthy do whatever they want. I have a very different approach. I intend to make the wealthy pay their fair share to build this economy. He wants to roll back regulations on Wall Street. I want to tighten them and make them cover more people so that we don't ever end up in the ditch we were in with the Great Recession. He hasn't offered any plans about infrastructure except building a wall and having Mexico pay for it. That's it. And so everybody who's independent, I don't care whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, anybody who just looks at his plans has concluded that it's not going to work. And one particular economist who looked at his plans, somebody who advised John McCain back in 2008, so you know that he's not a Democrat, he's an independent economic analyst, and he basically said, If Trump were able to implement what he's proposing, heaven forbid, it would cost 3.5 million jobs. He would actually reduce jobs. And then, to be fair, he looked at what I'm proposing, and he said what I'm proposing would create at least 10 million new jobs in the first 4 years. Now, if you just take Florida as an example, if you look at his numbers, here in Florida, you would gain 650,000 jobs from what I'm proposing. Under Trump, you would lose 200,000 jobs. So I think as people really consider their choice in the next 3 months, it's pretty clear which of us is actually going to help grow the economy, create more opportunity, get incomes rising, and who is not. Now, I want to say a special word. I want to say a special word about Puerto Rico. As some of you know, I was a senator from New York for 8 years, and I paid a lot of attention to Puerto Rico. We had a big Puerto Rican population in New York, just like you do here in Central Florida. And it's really important to me that we do what we can to help the people of Puerto Rico get the kind of support that they deserve to have, because let's remember a couple of things. Puerto Ricans are American citizens, right? Puerto Rican men and women have served at a disproportionately high level in the United States military over the years. If you live in Puerto Rico, you can't vote for your president and commander-in-chief, right? But as an American citizen, if you move to Florida or New York, you can vote for the president and commander-in-chief. So I want to do everything I can to get Puerto Rico back on a path of prosperity, to help the people in Puerto Rico, and to do everything I can to make sure that they are not left out and left behind, because they are part of our family. And I'm going to do what I can to make sure that they get the help that they need. Now, I think it's important, as you look at all of these issues facing us here at home and around the world, to really ask yourselves, what do you want in the next president and commander-in-chief? What kind of experience, what kind of vision do you want? And I think it's fair to ask, as Senator Nelson was, you know, the choice here is not just between two people. You know, that's obvious. My name will be on the ballot, his name will be on the ballot. It's much bigger than that. It's a choice between two different views of who we are as Americans and the vision we have for our future. I told you I am confident and optimistic. You could see the difference in the two conventions. You could see the Republican convention in Cleveland, which was filled with so much negativity and pessimism. I didn't know what country they were talking about. Do we have problems? Yeah, we do have problems. Do we have challenges? Yes, we do have challenges. Are we up to them? I think so. I believe we are. It doesn't only take leadership, it also takes citizenship. We all have to pull together. That's why I believe we are stronger together in meeting the challenges of the future. So I can't do this alone. I'm like Donald Trump, who in his acceptance speech said, "I alone can fix it." That's not what I believe. I believe I will do my very best, but I want all of you to be part of making this country everything it should be. I want small businesses to get started and growing. I want workers to get the fair pay and benefits you deserve to have. I want young children to have the best chance to go as far as their hard work and talent will take them. That's the America that I know and that I see and that we're going to make sure is there for everyone. So here's what I need. I need your help, and I'm not beating around the bush. I need your help. I need you to be sure that we get everybody registered to vote who is eligible to vote. I invite you to be part of this campaign. Do we have some clipboards around here? Yes, there's a clipboard. If you aren't registered and you're eligible, see the persons with the clipboards here. We want you to be registered, and then we want you to be part of this campaign. If you can give us time to knock on doors, to call people, we need you. If you're interested, text JOIN, JOIN, 47246, or go to our website, hillaryclinton.com, because we are going to work to produce the biggest possible vote, because we want everybody to understand we have an agenda that we're going to get working on the very first day that includes new jobs and infrastructure, comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. We're going to keep our country safe, and yes, we're going to go after the gun lobby and try to get common sense gun safety measures. Now, as I said in my convention speech, because I know there are a lot of hunters, there's a lot of collectors, I understand that. I come from a family that had guns, I understand that, so here's what I want you to know. We are not going to repeal the Second Amendment. We are not going to take anybody's gun away. We are going to try to prevent somebody who shouldn't have a gun from shooting you or somebody that you care about. So my friends, we've got 3 months. Let's do everything we can to win this election and then to be in a position to work together to create the kind of change that will lift people up, not push them down, that will make sure that the economy works for everybody, that we are safe, and that we are unified. If you're with me, please, let's go out, work hard, let's win, and then let's build the future that we want for our kids and ourselves.